I know when a lot of people look at me that uh, they're a bit off-put. They have the perception that, oh, well, maybe this guy he must be in the army, or maybe he's a police officer or something. And I know that that can intimidate some people at times, but appearances can be deceiving. And I know that while people may see that about me, what they would actually understand if they actually get to know me is that more important than anything with me is the absolute necessity to live my life abiding in a permanent state of love. I'm married to the most beautiful woman in the world. I have four most beautiful girls as my daughters, and if I lose that, if I lose that spirit, I lose them. So you can't really judge. You shouldn't really judge someone based on what you see. You really got to get to know what's inside of them, get to know what's in their heart.
All right, hi, this is Misty with Tech Media, and I am here today with Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing today?
Great.
Great. We're joining with Nick today to tell his story and to have him give us a little bit of information because he has a couple of very amazing areas of expertise. If you want to start with an introduction, Nick?
Sure. So my name is Nick. I am a born and raised Calgarian, well, Albertan. I actually grew up in the Patch.
Wonderful.
And my background is in software engineering. I've worked 16 years in the field, and my biggest passion is my family. So I'm married to an amazing woman, and I have four beautiful children, and they're the why for the what for everything that I do.
Wonderful.
One key point that I'd really like to highlight, though, or one thing that's very important for me to highlight, is my third child has a very severe disability. So she is low functioning on the autism spectrum. And, well, she's my best teacher. And like I said, she's the big why for all the whats that I do.
Wonderful. Yes, I see you out at our freedom rallies regularly with your daughter, and you guys are just like an amazing family, your wife and how the unit works together, even though you have a lot of obstacles to overcome on the regular, second by second by second. You do amazingly. So I commend you on that one.
Thank you.
Now, there's a couple key points that you wanted to cover in this. We know your background, you're a software engineer. There's another portion to that, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. So it's actually quite complex, and if I could go a little bit off script here.
Oh, sure, we're all a little complex, aren't we?
Sure. So while I was in engineering school, I served in the Canadian Army Reserves, and some of my first employment in my engineering career was with a large defense contractor. And I am very passionate about technology, so it melds in together both my expertise within the military, where I was a military signals operator, the modern, not so modern now, but it was modern 20 years ago, but the modern term for the guy with the big radio on his back.
Radar.
Only when they fast
Was
forward.
that Radar from that old the TV show, MASH? That was Radar.
I don't remember his name. Yeah,
I think his name's Radar. He's my favorite.
Yeah, but the modern version of that is the soldier with a radio that has an internet connection that has a digital device. And so about 5 or 10 years before digital mobile technology became prevalent, where iPhones, iPad, everything, all that, we were actually building systems for soldiers to have the same capability on the battlefield. So I was one of the integration engineers for one of the world's first digital battlefield communication system. So that actually has heavily influenced me throughout my career. Presently, I'm in a little bit of a switch, though, so I don't know. This might come as a bit of a shock or surprise. I don't actually really advertise it much, but I'm kind of in the process of doing a bit of a career change, especially on account of my family dynamics.
And maybe a little bit of COVID career change.
Yeah, I think that sort of accelerated or gave me a a greater sense of conviction to do so. But I'm actually trying to pioneer and research a concept that I don't think it's actually a thing yet that people aren't aware of, but it's a principle that I'm coining the term digital hypnosis or digital mind control. So I took a sabbatical to take care of my child. And in that time, I actually studied to become a hypnotherapist, and so I actually perform hypnosis.
So you're marrying the mentality of hypnosis with the technology that you're already so familiar with almost.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's remarkable because a lot of technology professionals, they know technology, but they don't really know the mind.
My mind is blown right now thinking about the thought of that.
Well, and likewise, a lot of people who specialize in the mind, they don't know that much about technology. And so I see that at some of the speeches, that's one of the things I've spoken about extensively.
Very cool, very cool.
Or the rallies, pardon me.
At the rallies, that's right. I've live streamed a couple of your speeches, and we have a couple on film that we're going to be putting up in the near future. So when you speak at our rallies here in Calgary, Alberta, the Freedom Rally, the Walk for Freedom, you have a small list over here behind our camera that you'd like to get pointed out. So let's get into some things that you'd like to share with the public that have to do with your expertise and what that matters to them, what that matters to our current world state of affairs.
Absolutely. So the first thing I mentioned was how the culture of COVID fear, or the fear culture of COVID, I don't know how you want to coin that phrase, but how that is enabling society-wide cruelty and division.
Is justifying cruelty because you're killing people if you don't abide.
Exactly. And well, go ahead,
Therefore,
sorry.
if you're killing people because you don't abide, I can yell at you for killing people because you don't abide, right? Gives everybody the free pass.
Oh, 100%. And this relates to my familial experience. Like everyone before the COVID outbreak, I would go out with my family. I'd take my 4 daughters and my third girl, she's a challenge in public because her level of, or her severity of autism is such that she's very, very, very dependent. And she's very high need. And well, first off, she doesn't have the cognitive capability to wear a mask. And so we go out in public. She does not wear a mask anywhere. It's a choking hazard. She also can't communicate, and so she gets confused very easily. So no one in my family wears a mask because the risk of her getting confused and running off into a street or grabbing the hand of a stranger and running away, it's just too high. And people were compassionate about that a year ago. Now we go out in public. Men will threaten to assault my wife if they see her and my daughter in public. And
And see, that's one of the reasons why you're here today, is because people have chosen to allow their fear to justify their unfounded, basically, hate and anger towards you. I've seen a meme with you in it. Can I share?
yeah, sure, why not? I thought it was funny, but well,
You thought it was funny. I was vibing. I was justifiably angry because of somebody else's COVID fear. But this person took a photo of you, and you're in your tack gear because it was a cold winter's day at our last rally, and you had your daughter with you, and you have her on a bungee because it's a busy rally. You want to tether your daughter because you don't want her running off. And somebody took a photo of you guys at our quote unquote, like what the people like to say, anti-mask rally. Sorry. And really, it's a freedom rally. And they put the quote on it. What is that? How Calgarian is that? Someone in a full tack gear at an anti-mask rally with their kid on a leash. And my jaw just dropped. And my heart rate just rose. And I was livid. And I know you from your speeches. And so I knew a little bit of your story. And I was just taken aback that somebody could be so cruel and feel as though it was justified. So this point is very, very valid and is actually the reason why you're here today.
Well, that actually segues to the second point I wrote up there. I wrote there how love and compassion are more important than ever. And, well, I guess one of the things for me, not a lot of people can understand what it's like to go through caring for a very high-need child like my daughter. I know we're in the extreme minority that way. And this is one of the most important lessons my daughter has taught me is the absolute necessity to, and I'll say to I would say almost to superhuman or to extreme levels, to be able to exercise restraint over your fear and your anger, or your negative emotions, your destructive emotions, as I call them. One of the things I think people don't really recognize with children with autism is everything with them is subconscious. And this relates to digital mind control and the hypnosis element, but non-verbal, non-communicative autistic people, they can read the subconscious energies from people better than anyone else.
Wow.
That,
This is facts I did not know.
well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm only saying that as a parent to my child, and I guess I can't speak for anyone else, but
You've noticed that with your own daughter. This is your experience.
Oh, 100%. And so the thing is, gosh, this intertwines with so many different topics, but my daughter, for example, I can say to her, it's like, you're a good girl, right? Now, if she were to just understand the words, she would say, oh, well, I'm a good girl. But the tone that I did it, the presentation of my actions, the way that I comported myself, all of those are subconscious actions. And while I don't go, you're a good girl, if I have lingering in the back of my mind fears and worry and doubt and insecurity and shame, if that is running through my mind, she senses it, right? And I've actually, the doctor said she would never speak. They said she would never be able to speak. She likely would be just, like, I hate to use the term, but she would just be like a houseplant for the rest of her life. And I just said, no, I don't choose to believe that. And I'm going to, this is the reason I to put my engineering career on hold, is I said, okay, well, I am going to figure it out, because I know how to read peer-reviewed science. I know how to extract data. I know how to interpret data. So I spent 6 months probably pouring each day through hundreds of peer-reviewed science or peer-reviewed medical documents on the U.S. National Library of Health. I scoured international journals for autism, and I figured out a system where I could teach her. And that really leads to that really is why I made that second point, how love and compassion are more important than ever. It's that it's so evident that our emotional impulses and our emotional responses, especially now in some later points I'm getting to, especially now with the way that we're all interconnected, the most viral and the most infectious thing is our emotional state, our emotional conditioning. So that's why love and compassion are so important, because honestly, that's how I've taught my daughter, is I say, okay, well, you've done something that I know 999 people out of 1,000 will get angry if they were in my shoes, but I'm going to love you unconditionally. I'm going to have compassion for you. I'm going to forgive you. And that's how I've taken my daughter from the point of where she could do nothing to the point where she's on a trajectory to recover. So
wonderful. So you've put in the work and you've experienced a lot of different things.
Well, and that does segue to the third point, how the culture of COVID fear is causing a mental health catastrophe.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, go ahead. I'm curious. How have you seen that in your life?
Oh, mental health capacity has definitely suffered in the wake of COVID, and people, I find, are instead of diving into their mental health, they tend to distract themselves from it and numb themselves from it. And a lot of it is electronic and some of it is physical. But in this day and age, with the amount of technology that we have, like a lot of it is technological. And people just sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll, and they go through these highs and these lows, and they're not even breathing. These human beings are not breathing oxygen into their body. They're not drinking water into their human body. They're not doing the things that their human body, basic things that their human body needs to actually process its own chemicals and hormones and toxins that it's subjected to. Don't even get me on the toxins, right? So definitely mental health, and we're not making it any easier by actively choosing to avoid the conversation of it and distracting and numbing ourselves from it, for sure.
Well, I'll segue, or I'll connect to and foreshadow to some of the other points I'm going to mention there. But related, and this is part and parcel with the digital mind control and the hypnosis element, is the way that technology has evolved now. It's to the point now that mental energies are now infectious. And if you talk to the creators of all the social media platforms, all the tech companies, they will actually they won't be proud to admit it, but they most certainly had conversations thinking, oh, well, how can we mind control our users to get them on here more, right? They'll never say that, or they'll never publicly admit it. But I've been in software design scrum. We call them scrums, design sessions, and I know what technology people are like, and they're like, oh, so I know that most psychologists would consider it unethical if we implemented this particular practice. We developed this UI to work this way. We know that it's probably unethical. People will probably get hurt if we do it, but well, I'll get that nice juicy $150,000 bonus. And you know, most technology professionals are oblivious to that. But I can guarantee you that those sorts of things happen systematically with everything. And so,
There's always good and bad in every single thing in the world.
well, yeah.
So we have to expect it.
And I guess that's one of the struggles I had working in tech is knowing how in each small way I may contribute to that. And you know, that segues to the fourth point. It's like basically what we're doing, and this for me as a parent, this is so important, is we're creating a system where we are institutionalizing childhood suffering. And basically, tech has now created a situation of collective insanity amongst the grown-ups. And you know, I feel so sorry for kids whose parents don't really understand this and don't know how to manage it. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not. Well, I am a closet survivalist, so I'm not saying, okay, well, let's grab an SKS rifle, let's run into the bush, and then we'll live off rabbits and squirrels the rest of our lives. You know, I've been there and I've done that. I'm not saying, you know, boycott and ban technology. I'm just saying that, you know, one of the things that we have to do is figure out how it's working, figure out how it influences us. And I think I've said this at one of the rallies. If not, I've spoken with one person and said that, you know, in 20 years, our children's generations, they're going to look at social media the same way we today look at cigarettes and alcohol and gambling. You know, they're gonna say, "Wow, these are, you know, yeah, they're fun.
Addictions.
Yeah, they're fun. You know, if you know how to use them responsibly. But boy, gosh, if you don't, they can destroy you." And I think that we're looking at living through a time where that's exactly what's happening. So, gosh, I don't know how to. It's one of my driving passions because I know that's one of the reasons why I'm making a career change is I want to steward my children through this because
Right.
The internet is literally an ocean, and we're taking small children who don't know how to swim and throwing them in, and now we're not just throwing them in, we're throwing them in right where there's a whole bunch of angry sharks, where we've thrown a whole bunch of bloody fish chum, right? That's the situation where we're in right now on the internet. So, pardon me if that was a bit graphic.
No, that's great. Marketing, they actually use the red water, like bloodied water or fresh blue water term when you're fishing for marketing clients.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of well, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are explicit laws about how you can market and advertise to children. Well,
Oh, absolutely.
that on the internet there's a woeful lack of any of that, and like I said, it's institutionalizing childhood suffering.
Right.
Well, moving on from the institutionalizing the suffering of children, kind of the overarching necessity for people to accept that things are never returning to the way they were. And you watch the media, you follow those social media trends, you put a finger on the pulse of sort of the overall social culture of people, and you can see that on every side there's this small glimmer of hope in everybody's mind that things will in some way go back to the way that they were.
Yeah.
Right. And I hate to be the one to break it to you. It's never going back to the way it was in any shape or capacity.
Right.
And that feeds into some of these things already, because I mean, for people to accept that, that's very, very, very hard. And some people can't accept it, or rather, that's such a daunting problem. I think it feeds right into the mental health catastrophe that we're facing. Is people, if you have a small tinge of hope if you have a small sliver of hope in something and it's completely crushed, if you're not mentally prepared for it, that can crush you. And so, I mean, that actually segues to point number 6. What can we do about that? And I could talk for hours about mental health. Especially the mental health struggles and challenges that myself and my wife and my family we've had to overcome and we've had to endure. But I forgot, what was it? The stages of grief. One of the first stages, or the first stage, is one of the first stages of healing is acceptance. And for me personally, I put a filter on reality that anytime I get the sense that there's someone or something saying, "Oh well, this will lead to things going back to normal,"
Right.
automatically that raises my radar to say, okay, BS. No, I I shouldn't generalize, because that's one of the things we should not do about this is resort to generalizations. But a filter comes on and says, okay, well, I'm gonna look at this with a lot of skepticism, and I don't think very many people have that filter. The second that they get a feeling, and this is the thing, technology.
They run with the feeling, and it just takes control, and it takes them off, and it hits them sideways, and then all of a sudden anything that has to do with that feeling right in front of them, they're going to explode at.
Exactly. And even worse, the technology platforms, that's
perpetuating it.
Yeah,
perpetuating it.
Like they're like sharks. That's like their tuna. They're like nom nom nom. Hey, there's somebody here who we can get their hopes up. Nom nom nom.
I love this shark analogy we've got going on.
Well, it's software engineer, right? That's
great.
That's how you're supposed to scrum. But
perfect.
Yeah, it's current systems of information distribution, primarily the mainstream media, primarily the social media. They have monetized incentive to get people's hopes up and crush them. Like it literally is, because
because then they offer a solution and they charge you a lot of money for the solution.
Well, yeah. Well, and the big thing too is that they get the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
sometimes they don't offer a solution. They just keep on giving you the breadcrumbs that they see that you're mentally attached to, like addicted to.
Right. Now, one mental health thing that I'll address, and it's somewhat taboo, but I have no problem being taboo. Is
sure.
One of the biggest exacerbators or one of the biggest causes, I think, of mental health is pornography addiction.
100%.
So I'm 100%. I'm a recovering porn addict. I've 2 years without a drink, and hand to God, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done is to break that addiction. It was a lifelong addiction.
Yes.
And that addiction caused huge problems for my wife, and subtle problems for me. I didn't even know that I had until I actually broke the addiction.
Right.
But as horrible as sexualized porn is, fear porn is even worse, because you can't look away from it. It infects everyone.
Yeah, and it's something that you can watch in the open on the train. It's like you're not sitting there watching sexual porn on your grandma's couch, but you're definitely watching CNN.
And the worst part to that is, even if you're not watching CNN, you're watching the expression, the actions, the face of your grandmother who does watch CNN, because
right?
it probably is
yes.
your grandmother. But
grandmas watch CNN.
Yeah.
Confirmation.
And even if you don't watch CNN, the fear response that CNN triggered in your relative, your friends, or whatnot, they project it to you.
Absolutely they do. I have an uncle that does it to me all the time, and I've started tagging him at the top of my post saying, Uncle, I'm giving you this information because I love you, and I want you to have a good life, and I want you to be a highly functioning human being, and I want you to not be afraid and not have high cortisol levels and not be stressed and not be subject to viruses and bacteria because your immune system is low. I literally do that now because this person has been calling me stupid and all sorts of different things, and he's my uncle that I love. So it's been really, really quite challenging to have the people that you love turn against you. So that's another side effect of all of these things that people are enabling cruelty and division in people with COVID and with this.
Yeah, well, I think this really does tie, and I should put my second point as my first point, but that is the antidote to all this, and it starts
solutions.
it starts with the individual. Each and every single person has to permanently abide in a unrelenting spirit of love, compassion, and I forgot to put on there, forgiveness, because that's infectious too. And see, that's the thing is, fear, anger, shame. Those are extraordinarily destructive emotions, feelings, and they're very, very infectious. Well, love, compassion, forgiveness, those are also infectious. And so to your point about that angry meme, that's why I looked at it and thought it was funny, because I looked at it and then said to myself, okay, you know what? This person knows nothing about me, but I can very reasonably assume that this person is in a fight-flight response. They probably infinity scrolled their way through nothing but articles about how COVID is going to kill them, and every one of their friends have done the same. And she misses being around those friends, but when she Skypes them, she can read it on their face. And well, look here.
Oh,
She's
and
been like,
and she's socially isolated
and
from her friends, even though we're human beings and we actually should be close together.
yeah,
Switching bacterias and you know, our cultures and growing and immune and breathing air together,
right,
being human beings. And this person's probably in a non-human state.
right. And see, that's the thing is, and this relates, especially why I speak a lot with passion for my child, is there's no worse fear that you can ever have than the fear of losing your child. And when that's with as disabled a child as mine, that's especially early on when we were trying to accept it. That was something we faced daily, like every single day. It was like, oh, Gigi, like how can we get you back? The answer to that was to love without love to love to love within love to love with to have to. I'm struggling
That's
saying
okay.
it.
I can.
No, keep it because this is just how
Sure.
challenging it is. But
It is
to love
challenging.
infinitely, right?
Right.
And well, yeah, this is where I kind of this is where I go really, really, really controversial. But so I'm a Christian, and while that's the concept of grace, of unconditional forgiveness,
Yes.
right? And unconditional love. And really that if one person can abide in that, well, they can infect 10. And if those 10 people can infect 10, they can do 10 to the power of 10 because I can't do math. And then they can do that, that then becomes the viral infection. The real viral infection that's actually the antidote to, I don't want to call it fake, but
Hate, fear.
was I would say it's the real viral infection that's the antidote to the virus that everyone's afraid of. So
I heard last night from one of my friends who studies viruses that it's not actually a virus, but that's another show. The antidote to this virus, we can say, is love, grace.
make those things go viral.
Make those things go viral. Make love go viral. Make grace go viral. Make forgiveness go viral. Make compassion go viral. Make community go viral.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love it. I thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your family story. And I want to let everybody out there know that we should also be making freedom go viral. The
Absolutely.
freedom to do all of those things, the love, the compassion, the grace, the forgiveness, and the freedom to do them all day, every day in community with one another. Thank you so much for coming, Nick.
Thank you very much.